Welcome to how to make a fire particle in UDK. Now, first of all, open up your Unreal editor. Once you have it open, make sure the content browser is also open. If it is not, click on this button to open it. Now, in order to make a fire texture, you must use different parts in order to create a better looking effect. This includes the fire itself, the smoke that comes out, and even the ember that sprays out of it every once in a while. Now, in order to make these effects, you need to make the textures for it. For this tutorial, I've already made a texture for the fire, in which I did a 3x3 sprite sheet of different fire, in which the particle editor later on will pick one by one at a time, for each time it's emits a new particle. This will give the illusion that there's the fire is more realistic and than just having one flame that flickers around. Now for the smoke, I have actually made 3 different kind of smoke textures. One is one of them, the light one, is going to be the emissive. This is the type of fire the smoke that you're actually going to see. One of them is going to be used mostly for the opacity. And the last one is used to help warp and give more differentiation to the opacity. And the last one I made is just a simple square, gray square on a transparent background. This is going to be used for the ember. Now, in order to import these textures, you simply just hit import, find the texture that you want, let's say this one, and you will want to give yourself a package, create the package, name it whatever you want. This is where all your things that you're going to make for this particle is going to go into. Grouping is the folder that you want that goes with whatever you're making. In this case, we're making textures, so we're making a texture folder. Name is whatever the name that comes with it, and that's okay. You can go hit OK. We're not going to do it because it's already been added. I've already added it. Now, this should then make you folders for your textures. And once you've got all of them imported, like I do right here, go ahead and you can hit new, or you can hit right click and go new material. And if you did hit new, you would have to change this to make sure it says material. And you would make a new material, call it material, group name, for this case you can call it fire, I'll call it fire test that. Excuse me. So, you hit OK. This should then open up the material editor. It will also make a material folder within the package name. Hopefully you've done it in the same package. This way everything is grouped together nicely. Now for my case, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to show you a pre-made one, because I think it might be easier to simply just show you the end result and what these nodes and how you can find them. So this is the end result. As you can see, there's a lot of nodes. Now, most of these nodes aren't quite necessary for you to create just something that you can test. However, a lot of these nodes help to enhance the effect. For example, these series of nodes can be used to help make this glowy effect that you see around the fire, while a combination of these 3 over here helps to just give more contrast. Multiply can be used in addition to a constant, to help give you just more contrast, either make it brighter or make it darker. And to show you what these all are, first you would start, normally in your thing you want to start off with a parameter mesh sub UV. You can go in here, you find the texture. I think it's actually easier to search mesh sub UV. And you should this texture sample parameter mesh sub UV. So if you were to drag it in, you'll get something like this. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this. So once you have this, you want to look down here under the texture label. You'll want to go into your content browser, go under your texture, select your fire texture, and you want to go hit this green arrow, and it will put it into your parameter mesh sub UV, and it should show up like this. Now what you want, next one that you must have is this Vertex Color. Vertex Color allows you to colorize your particles in the particle editor in real time instead of having to constantly color it yourself. And in order to combine these things, you would normally then have to have a multiply by plugging the Vertex Color into one of the channels of the multiply and plugging in the parameter mesh sub-UV into the other channel. Once you have done that, you can then just go ahead and connect the multiply into the emissive. This is what it's going to make it glow the color. Now you might be asking, why have all these? Like I said, it's simply to add more of a contrast. It's just to help bring out the colors more. If you did not have these three, this would simply not glow. It would look duller. But just to go through some of the values, there are actually no values associated with any of these nodes. These nodes are altered simply by adding a constant. You can go in here and you type in constant, and you'll see you have these are different kinds of constants that you can use. Normally you probably will only use either this, the 1 vector constant, or the 3 vector constant. 3 vector constant gives you more control over all three color ranges, R, G, and B, while this constant is simply just black and white in grayscale. And by using a combination of these, when you make one, you can simply just go in and type in a certain number. That will give you this, and when you combine it with your other nodes, you can get a result similar to this. And you can see these numbers: 5, 5, 3, 2. You get the idea. And then once you're done with all that, you can hit this check mark to apply. And the reason why I'm not doing so, because I don't really need to save this, but I'm going to hit no, or you can just hit yes. If you don't apply it, then you're actually gonna have material. So now you can repeat this process with your other materials. You can remake another material, make it one for your smoke, and make one for your ember. And I will show you real quick what the smoke and the ember one looks like. Smoke is probably one of the more complex ones, because these nodes are help give you just different variations of the smoke without having to make a lot of different smoke textures. So you see, this is the warping texture that we use. What we've done is we've put a panner into this. What the panner does, you can type in here and type in panner, take this and drag it out. What the panner does is it will translate the image around based on the speed that you've designated, and in this case, because the image originally is really large, we want to only show a portion of that image. So what we've done is now added a texture coordinate to the panner. So if you go in here and you type in texture coordinate, you see right here, fourth one, texture coordinate. If you drag this down, what you can tell it to do is specify how much of your texture you want it to actually show up in this square. In this case, we're only showing 0.2 of the entire image. And so what this is now also doing is now you have a multiply to this sample texture, which is not necessary. This was done simply to brighten up the texture, but this eventually will be plugged in to the height of this new node. Now you see it's called the bump offset. So you can once again find this bump offset. You can drag this in. What this will do is it will give the slight look of bumpiness into your image, kind of like a rippling wave that goes through. Just helps to create this difference into your texture that will look very neat when you put it into your particle editor. For the bump offset, we've done a 1.5 height ratio and a 0.5 to the reference plane. Now this will now plug into the UVs of your textures sample for your opacity cloud, the one that you're using for the opacity. And once again, this is not really, so these three multiplies aren't particularly all that necessary for plugging into the opacity. However though, I guess this one, you don't necessarily need it. You could. You don't necessarily need this Vertex Color to plug into the multiply to combine with this, but you can if you want. If you were to do it, simply use the white one. This is the opacity. This is the alpha channel of your Vertex Color. And so these are simply used to combine and add more contrast, add more brightness, change the values. You can do it. It's something that's more of a tweak kit for yourself. The third texture that we use now is the brighter one. This has been connected with something called the Rotator. Just like the other one, you can find it in here, Rotator. What the Rotator does is exactly what it says. It will rotate the image that it's connected with. And what it does is it will rotate out around the center pivot, X, Y, and based on this, if the speed is positive, it will go counterclockwise. If it is negative, it will go clockwise. And once again, this thing is plugged into a series of multiplies. Of course, one is into the Vertex Color. This one is very important for what we're going to do later on. And eventually this is connected to the emissive, and as you can see, the bottom one is connected to the opacity. Now you will also note that this image includes a constant 3 vector. It's not really necessary to have this, because in this case, since they're all 1.4s, really it's just making it brighter in all colors. Having 3 constant variables simply gives you a little more control than a 1 constant vector. And that's simply the one for the smoke. Like I said, if you were to do this, you simply only really need is the multiplier that connects the vectors to the texture of both clouds, one for each. You will need the bump offset channels that connects to your opacity, and you don't necessarily need this multiplier. Now the last one, easiest one, is the Ember, which I simply just took the texture sample, connected it to a multiplier with a Vertex Color, connected the multiplier to the emissive, and I just simply connected the alpha channel on the texture into the opacity. Oh, and one thing I did forget to mention is that for both the fire and the smoke materials, you will want to just click outside of everything in the materials, and you want to change the blending mode of the material to blend additive. This is important for the cloud one, the smoke one, because without it, it doesn't actually show up.